The good news is, guess what's happening? We're getting homes for our buyers every single day. We're navigating this crazy market with precision and getting you the absolute best price on the best home for you with our system that we have.
Hey, this is Blake Sloan. I've been selling real estate over 14 years, and our team of highly trained professionals, along with our unmatched marketing, has sold thousands of homes here in the Myrtle Beach area, and this is how we do it.
And so I call this one the influence frame. Super important, because as the pressures rise, or the pressure's risen, we're going to see a lot more of this come up, right? The influence frame. So what do you guys think that means? I got to be able to get them through this gauntlet of deals and offers and chaos and multiple offers to $100,000 over asking price. Some markets are $1 million over asking price. And I have to have them understand like what's really happening right now and how do I navigate this so that they know that I'm here for their best interest and guiding them so they trust and value me all the way through the transaction, right? But it's very hard. And so like Ryan said, you could do 9 of the 10 things right, and then the 9th one or 10th one is wrong, they're going to obviously lose trust. And so there's a system here that's designed, the super one, super important. Somebody mentioned it. What's the first phase of this? What do you think is the most important part coming into the situation with anyone? Yes. The most valuable weapon that you all have in the current market right now is a pre-frame. What does a pre-frame mean? What does that mean? I've got to be able to set them up for what's about to happen. I've got to be able to set them up for what's happening right now. And so the first thing I want you guys to look at, the first piece of that, most important, is my goal here is to plant a seed. That's how you got to see it. I'm planting a seed for the entire transaction, which is like basically a 30,000 foot view of here's what's going on, here's the overview, here's things that's happening. We mentioned this before in previous trainings. We talked about what? I have that overall meeting with them. That's called the what meeting? You guys remember? The reality of the market meeting. Hey, here's what's going on. Let's have a meeting really quick about the reality of the market. But a lot of people are doing what? Skipping over it, and then your client messages me a month later wanting to get out their agreement. Right? For no reason, they want to go to some dumbass who they found on Zillow who sold 3 homes last year. But the difference is we can't skip that phase because that's what sets the stage for the rest of your transaction. You guys with me on that? Super important. Here's the first part. Our goal here with this part is I want to make sure that we align our expectations. Align expectations. So I want to make sure that I understand where they're at. They want to understand where I'm at, and then what am I doing there? I'm gauging the difference. Well, are they in reality, or are they in fantasy? And so part of what we got to do at an elite level is I got to go find them where they're at and bring them to where I'm at. Then we walk together. Does that make sense? And so ask yourself the question of where am I not selling to people based on where they're at? I'm just selling on where I'm at. That's where a massive disconnect comes, and that's where they're not trusting you. Okay? So that's the super important part there. Very, very important. That's one thing that we did last night. The listening appointment last night, I asked the question 4 or 5 different ways to figure out where exactly they're at, what's your timeline, how soon is it, and then I clarify based on where they're at so I can know how I'm going to do what? How I'm going to sell them and help them. Right? My trajectory is going to be different if they're now versus 2 months from now, 3 months from now. What happens if I sell too fast, right? You want to make sure I'm figuring out where they're at because I want to figure out what their stuff is. And the third part is super important, which is what I was doing there. I got to start eliminating doubt. This is where I'm coming back up a little bit in the conversation. So what do you think that means? How will we do that on the buy side? Show my confidence, right? In a way, say, hey, look, I know the market's super crazy right now, right? I'm sure you guys experienced that or read about it or seen about it. Based on what? Where they tell me they're at. Right? I'm going to adjust my conversation there. But the good news is, guess what's happening? We're getting homes for our buyers every single day. We're navigating this crazy market with precision and getting you the absolute best price on the best home for you with our system that we have. So I'm injecting what? Hope into the conversation because I got to make sure I'm balancing that out. Does that make sense? I'm also understanding I want to start eliminating their doubt, their objections, and their hesitation. So if I've done this right in my conversation, I have a decent idea of what their objection is going to be and what their hesitation is going to be. Based on my initial conversation, also based on what I've had experience in my overall discovery. So if they tell me about their bad experiences with 2 other agents, what do I got to start thinking about? How am I pre-framing them on the difference of what we do, how we're different than the average agent, and there is an opportunity to not have to deal with that anymore in the future. Right? I'm planting that seed so I can do what? I'm telling them what I'm going to tell them. That makes sense. I'm starting to tell them what I'm going to tell them, pre-framing that so I can know how to overcome it on the back end. Does that make sense? And so I'm looking for opportunities where I can layer in pieces of what's going to happen. The conversation last night in the listing appointment, I heard these certain pieces, so I'm layering in future issues, and I'm overcoming them in my pre-frame so that what? They don't come up on the back end. Fourth piece here is I got to make sure I start demonstrating value. Everything they start telling me, I start finding a way to layer in value what we do. That reminds me of XYZ on my radio show. We talked about this, right? This reminds me of whatever it is. My last client, we did this. And so I find ways in my pre-frame that I got to make sure I'm able to take them. Most of this for you guys right now is all going to be on one subject. What do you think it's going to be? Inventory. The market, aka inventory. That's who you're battling right now from an invisible monster who's trying to eat up your clients and your business. Because they're not believing you based on what the market is. So perfect example, right? You get somebody who's non-local who wants to have a property in Market Common. They want townhouses. They want something specific. And so what I got to start pre-framing them on. How tight the inventory is. There's only 6 right now. They're going to happen pretty quick, though. The good news is there's only 6, but there are a bunch that have come on the market. They just go under contract pretty quickly. There's also some new construction properties here with XYZ Builder who we can probably get you in the next phase if you want to. So I'm layering in my pre-frame in my initial conversation with a non-local so that I can do what? Have more loyalty and influence in the back end. But if I just go through the script and just get the basic information and have notes, and then all of a sudden I send him something and he doesn't get but 6 homes, what's going to happen? He ain't going to trust you, right? Super important. So you got to make sure you're pre-framing and whatever that is, and they still may not trust you. That's the important part of the aspect. So I got to make sure I'm layering this in, but everything right now is starting to pre-frame. For most of you, that needs to be that reality of the market conversation, which happens after I sign them. Because I've seen where you all work with them for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 months, and then all of a sudden it gets, they made some offers. They didn't get obviously what they wanted, the home inspection, because they can't. And so then what happens is all of a sudden they turn on you and they don't trust you. Or in that case, the agency, even though we have nothing to do with it. Right? It all has to do with my pre-frames over and over on the front end, and I'm constantly going to be layering those in. All right, so next phase. What do you think next phase is? Next phase, explain. Right? The first part is pre-frame, which is me setting the landscape. I'm planting the seed about here's what's happening, here's what's going on, here's kind of what we're seeing right now, but I don't give in too much because I don't want to do what? Scare them away. Which anyone would say, hey, look, here's the deal, man. If you want to buy a house right now, and some agents do this, right? If you want to buy a house right now, you don't have a chance in hell. You're going to get 5, 10 offers and spend $40,000, $50,000 over asking price. If I tell them that in the first conversation, what's going to happen? They're going to run, right? They don't have anything to do with you. And so I've got to make sure I layer this in with precision in what I do. And so the second phase is once I have the trust, basic rapport, a.k.a. they probably sign with me as a client. At that point, this is when I start doing the deep level explanation. What am I explaining to them? What am I explaining?
The strategy.
First part is going to be right here. It's got to be the facts. My strategy will come after that a little bit because I got to do what first? Lay out the problem, right? Here's what's going on. Here's the facts. The facts would also be what? Data. That's exactly what I'm looking for. The facts would also be data. Here's the facts of what's going on, right? There's less than 1 month inventory right now. It's actually 0.8 months of inventory. How many weeks do you think that is, right? You start going into that part. I'm layering that in, and I'm showing them that. Super important. Because I'm doing the facts right now, the facts of what's happening. On the seller side, what am I talking about? Market's super hot right now. Anybody can sell a house right now, but the facts are most agents are really costing their client tens of thousands of dollars. They have no strategy in place. They're just putting it in the market, underpricing it, and costing their client $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 every single day in the market right now. I see it. You guys see it. How many of y'all send an offer to a seller's agent? They just accepted the first offer. Right? Everybody in here. In reality, if they played it right, they could have got multiple offers, driven the price up $20,000, $30,000, put more money in their client's pocket. Period. Right? You don't like to hear that in the buy side, but that's just the facts. And so I want to talk about that with my client based on what side I'm on. Here's what's going on. So if I'm a seller's agent, what am I talking about? Don't be the average agent cost you your hard-earned equity. Here's what they're doing. They're just mispricing, they have their strategy, whatever it is. On the buy side, I'm talking about what? The facts of the market. Here's what's happening. Here's the data. Here's my experience, and I'm going to layer that in. The second part, number 2 part is my stories. There's a saying I live by, stories sell, facts tell. Right? Stories sell, facts tell. So if I tell a story, specifically a third-party story, what happens? They put themselves in that person's shoes. I do, right? You tell me a story about somebody, I start thinking about it, what's going on, then all of a sudden, I'm putting myself in their shoes. So that's just something that I've got to make sure I'm layering in stories of what's happening that tell the facts. And so these two here are connected, which means what? My conversation must be very strategic. One perfect example I just had, we talked about a story you had. Hey, on the team, I had a brand new listing, took it active on like a Thursday, had 4 hours and 4 offers. None of them saw the property in person. The highest offer was $30,500 over asking price or whatever it was. Right? It's a powerful story to tell a buyer, even a seller. Right? And so here's what I'm pointing out to. People are buying properties sight unseen, 4 hours, 4 offers over $30,000 over asking price. What's that do? That ups the intensity of the reality of the market. Now, if I just flat tell them, hey, you're going to pay $30,000 over asking price, what's that going to do? They're going to say, F you, buddy, I don't like you, I don't trust you, I'm going to go to the agent who tells me what I want to hear. Right? And so, perfect example of a pre-frame, I did this last night multiple times, is I tell my client what? One of the things we pride ourselves on here at our company is I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. Is that okay with you? Yes. And so that builds trust. Now when I have to have that conversation, guess what that is? Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, remember that time I told you when I first met you that I'm always going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear? Yes. Now is one of those times. Is that okay? Great. Double pre-frame. Right, insert my story, my fact. Now, my stories, I'm going to go back and I'm going to have them follow loops. The mind comprehends things in loops. And so this is something I learned from Garrett a long time ago, is that the mind reads things in loops. And so what happens if I start telling stories, what's the mind got to do? Close the loop. And so the mind's going to follow that story and that situation until I get to the point where I'm going to close the loop because they want to know what's happening. So the better I get telling stories about somebody in my office who had this listing, things, right, whatever it is, and I start telling stories, you're not going to believe what happened. Great single-family house, took it active, did all the marketing, the pre-marketing, took it active. You're not going to believe, guess what happened in 4 hours? And they're thinking, what, I'm layering questions, right? They got 4 offers in 4 hours. Guess how many people saw the property in person? 0. Guess what the highest offer was? And so with stories and questions, what's happening to their mind? They're following me and they're trying to close the loop. So when I ask the questions, guess how much over asking price it went for? They throw me a number, but really what does that do? It creates engagement on their part where they're more committed to the outcome because they're the ones invested in it with their story. And I'm doing that whole thing with all 4 of these, or all 3 of these, sorry, I got ahead of myself, is I'm weaving these together. Weaving that is what I just explained. So the weaving part is when I mix in my facts, my stories, and my loops. I've got to make sure I'm explaining this over and over and over and simplifying like I'm talking to a child in a way because they need the repetition and I got to slow down. One of the mistakes we make is we sell to them based on where we're at still in the market. I can hear it one time, I understand it, but they need to hear it over and over and over and over. Right? So what am I constantly talking about? Data. I'm going to have to tell that number enough times where they remember it. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, do you remember how much inventory is in the market right now? Right? Whatever it is, I got to make sure I'm layering that data in, which is super important. Okay? Very, very important. Now, what am I going to do after that? Explain the data to them. What am I going to do after that?